Hello, welcome to our lecture, ARE 215, that is History of Islamic Civilization and Culture. With me, Ms. Mugalo, who is your lecturer. During our last lecture, and that is through the Kenneth conference, we were able to look at the Umayyad Dynasty, and it was recorded. So I believe that students have the recording so that you can read and get insightful information about this course. Also, I believe that you already you are through with your first cut, that is cut 1, and I believe that when I'll come to the university, that is on face-to-face lecture, I will be able to collect them because the deadline is approaching. Thank you very much for this time. Please feel free to engage with me through the chat, the public chat section. It is there on your screen. And thank you very much for responding to this call, although it was on a short notice. I really appreciate your cooperation. And let us start off our lecture today. This course, that is ARE 215, we are looking at the Islamic religion, Islam as a religion, and we'll be delving at how it was able to develop from the time, that is from the time of Prophet Muhammad, and also look at the civilization history. Did Islam as a religion have any impact, and did it grow from one period to another, looking at different aspects? So I've already said that during our lecture, we looked at the Umayyad dynasty, and we looked at its achievement, and also we looked at the decline of the Umayyad dynasty. So this lecture today, we are going to look at the Abbasid dynasty as the third part after when we are looking at the issue of the caliphate. The Abbasid dynasty reigned from 750 to 1258 CE, and as we will look later, we will notice that the Abbasid dynasty was the longest serving caliphate among other caliphates that we have looked at. So the lesson will look at the rise of the Abbasid dynasty, where we will be looking at the different caliphs, and one of them is Ali Mahid, who reigned from 775 to 785. Ali Mahid, he was the first Abbasid Caliph, so I have already mentioned, to resume the expeditions against the Byzantines. Harun, his future successor, distinguished himself during these expeditions that made him to earn the honorific title that is Ar-Rashid, the follower of the right path from his father. So this title, he got it during the expeditions that they were engaging in, and his father saw it wise to call him the follower of the right path. Harun was the second caliph, that is, he reigned from 786 to 809. The most brilliant period of the Abbasid dynasty is placed during his reign, and during his reign we see that it was the peak of the Abbasid dynasty. It was the peak of the Abbasid dynasty. The country experienced prosperous aspects, and the court was characterized by lavish style of living, where everything was plastered in gold. So I think it is also referring to the architecture and everything that was in that court. That during his reign he was able to plaster the court with everything gold, and this was a sign of prosperity that was gained during that time. Al-Rashid left a very remarkable history, and his name is among the few people who had achieved so much. According to Hitti, that is a scholar who wrote his book in 1973, in page 302, during the reign of al-Rashid, the Baghdad became a city with no peer throughout the whole country, or the whole world, sorry. So it signifies that during the reign of al-Rashid, there was so many things that could be attributed to prosperity, and that is what Hitti records. It had many annexes for harems, eunuchs, and special functionaries. So Baghdad was a very great commercial center and the greatest seat of learning and culture in this world. So we see that during the reign of Rashid, Baghdad became a city where it had no comparison or no peer throughout the world, that had so much culture and great seat of learning. When al-Rashid ascended to throne, he appointed Yahya bin Khalid, his former teacher, as the vizier. The two sons of Yahya, that is Al-Fadl and Jafar, practically ruled the empire for almost 50 years. That is another significant recording during the reign of al-Rashid. So you should note that under the reign of Harun al-Rashid, the Barmakids, as they were called, exercised a lot of influence and lived a grand style. So there was a characteristic of wealth and munificence, that is great generosity, which was felt in financing the construction of the canals, mosques, and other works of the public utility. So we see that during the reign of Harun al-Rashid, there was so much prosperity, and this is seen in the way he constructed the court with gold. He plastered the court with gold, and also the people who are living with, especially the Barmakids, were living with in a grand style, and they were very generous in a way that they even financed or sponsored the construction of mosques and other works of public utility. Other works of public utility may include schools, universities, and even hospitals. Al-Fadl was the first person in Islam to introduce the use of lamps in mosques during Ramadan. Jafar was renowned for his eloquence and penmanship, that is, matters concerning the writings, readings, scholarship in totality. So as a result of these qualities, Arab historians regarded the Barmakids as the founders of the designated as the people of the pen, that is Ahl al-Haram. Jafar was also a leader of fashions. The long neck that he possessed is said to have been responsible for the introduction of custom of wearing high collars. So he had a taste on fashion, and that is another stood which stood during the reign of Al-Harun. So due to this high profile and the power that the Bamakids wielded, the Caliph decided to end their tutelage, that is guardianship. Jafar was killed in 803. Yahya and the three of his sons, including Al-Fadl, that is Yahya is the former teacher to Al-Harun. So with his three kids, including Al-Fadl, were imprisoned, and they later died in prison, and their property was confiscated. They were called the Bamakids during that time, and we see that they lived a luxurious life. So they died in prison, and their property was confiscated, and families, which was founded by the first Vizier, that is Khalid bin Bamuk, fell from grace, never to rise again. That is according to history. So their fall paved the way for the decline of the Caliph's rule in the Persian lands. And we are talking about Caliph, that is Caliph Al-Harun. The next one is Al-Mamun. That is our next caliph during the Abbasid Dynasty. He reigned from 813 to 833. So he's rated as the one of the greatest Abbasid rulers. He promoted the study of various arts, philosophy, and sciences. So during the reign of Al-Mamun, there is so much that concerns scholarship. He encouraged philosophical discussions and favored rationalism. So he encouraged people to have their own ideologies, and also discuss them so that they can promote the study of various departments like arts, philosophy, and sciences. Also, during the reign of Al-Mamun, we see that he established libraries, observatories, and other institutions. So he was very key. He was he had an eye for scholarship. Many reputable scholars flourished in his court. So during his reign, we see that there are so many scholars who came up. He established the Bati al-Hikmah. That is, the Bat al-Hikmah is the house of wisdom that became one of the most important institutions of the learning in the medieval period. It is recorded in history that it is one of the most important institutions of learning in the medieval period. So you see that during the reign of Al-Mamun, there is so much that concerns scholarships and promoting various departments like arts, philosophy, and sciences. So we've just summarized the rise of the Abbasids, the consolidation of the Abbasids' power by various rulers. You have the notes, I believe you have notes also, that is the copy with these slides, and also try to cooperate them together. So unlike the Umayyads, who promoted the Arab race, the Abbasid dynasty stressed on the principles of religion and piety as opposed to race. Remember, the issue of caliphate came from the idea of Prophet Muhammad, and Prophet Muhammad propagated the issues that concerns Islam. Is the founder of the Islam religion. So we see that Umayyads were promoting the superiority of the Arab race, and they tried to run away or not to engage on issues that deal with religion and piety. So they were delving on issues that concerns race. But Abbasids comes here after the Umayyad, and they stress on the issues of religion and piety as opposed to the Umayyads. So it is evident that Abbasid period witnessed a lot of the Persian invasion on Muslim life. Consequently, historians have described the coming to power of the Abbasids as the victory of the Persians over the Arabs. You see here the Arabs who are propagated or who are supported by the Umayyad, but we see that the historians connected the Abbasid dynasty with the Persian group of the Persian people. That is why you say that it is evident that the Abbasid period witnessed a lot of Persian influence on Muslim life. There was aspects of the Persian, the cultures that were coming from the Persian, which were influenced or were put in the lives of the Muslims during that time of the Abbasid dynasty. So in summary, we can say that the Abbasid rule was an advantage to the Persian people. So there is here an activity which you can do or you can discuss. Analyze the rise of the Abbasids to power in 750 CE. That is, the Abbasid revolution was a victory of the Persians over the Arabs. Can you comment on that? Can you comment on that? Where we are looking at aspects of the Persians and the cultures and some issues were propagated in the lives of the Muslims during the Abbasid dynasty. There is further readings here. As students of ARE 215, you should have areas where you have content for further reading. There is a scholar here, Hassan, who wrote The History of Islam, a very good book of which you can read as you do your research. There is another book by Hitti, 1973, History of the Arabs, where we are looking at how the Arabs were ruled or how they propagated issues that were supported by Prophet Muhammad. And then there is another book by Lewis, the Arabs in History, very remarkable books of which I believe that if you research on them, you'll have more insights about the Abbasid dynasty, the Umayyad dynasty, and also the Abbasid revolution. That is according to the Cambridge University Press, where there is Google, so you Google and do your research as you build your information or content on this course. Having said that, I believe now we can look at the administration under the Abbasids. We've already looked at the different caliphs, and we've seen that they propagated or they showed signs of prosperity. And I also said when we started that during the Abbasid dynasty, we saw that there is so much improvement. So in the previous lesson, we analyzed the rise of the Abbasids. And I believe that during this time, we are going to examine the system of administration under the Abbasids and compare and contrast it with that of the Umayyads, if possible. So we'll go straight to the objectives. You should be able to examine the system of administration of the Abbasids and also comment and compare, contrast, looking at how the Abbasid administration was compared to the Umayyads administration. The Abbasid dynasty, when we look at its administration, it had some of the features. And one of it is that the Abbasid administration's partition of the empire remained largely similar to that of the Umayyad era. The empire was divided into provinces, each administered by governors. So we say that the administration was not interfered with. They just maintained what was there during the reign of the Umayyads. And we said that the empire was divided into provinces and were governed by governors and superintendents of the revenue, an agent of the Caliph responsible for the collection and management of revenue and other administrative tasks. Remember that when we were looking at the Umayyads, we said that some of the individuals who refused to convert to Islam were given some kind of security. And to do that, they were supposed to give out some revenue and tax. And we say that during the reign of the Umayyad, they were overtaxed and they were overtaxed in general. And that is why when we were looking at the decline of the Umayyads, we say that those people who were against the collection of the revenues and taxes were the propagators of the Abbasid or the supporters of the Abbasid dynasty. And they were the people who promoted or who propagated the rise of the Abbasid dynasty. So revenue was very important during the reign of the issue. When we are looking at the periods of the Caliphate, it was very important. For those people who did not want to convert to Islam, they were supposed to pay something as a form of security so that they can live in harmony with others in those times. So in most cases, the governor was answerable to the vizier, by whose recommendation he was appointed by the Caliph. When we were looking at the reign of Al-Rashid, we saw that he appointed one of his former teachers as the vizier, and he was able to help him in the ruling during that time. Among his duties, that is the duty of the governor, were to direct the military affairs of the state and right of nomination and control of the judiciary. Those were functions of the governor, and then levying of taxes and maintenance of public security, safeguarding the state's religion against innovations, administration of police, and presiding of public prayers on Friday. So you see, this their work was to supervise the administrators and their staff, and he or the wazir was given power to appoint and fire provincial governors. So he also presided over the council, whose members were the departmental heads. That is another feature of the Abbasid administration. And we looked at the aspect of the wazir, who was appointed by the caliph who is the head of the state. And we say that there were, and we've looked at it in looking at different ministries that existed and their functions, where we say that Abbasid was supposed to supervise, and also he had power to appoint and fire the administrators during the Abbasid time. Another feature, we're looking at the features of the Abbasid administration. The judiciary was entrusted with the work of carrying out justice. That is to ensure if there is any wrongdoing, they come in and ensure that law and order is observed. This was perceived as a religious duty to be carried out by the Qadi, who is the head of the Sharia court, and the chief Qadi, who was to be a member of the Faqih class. The Faqih class is the group which composed learned in the Islamic law. Those people who are learned according to the Islamic law were the people who composed the Faqih class. The class decided cases, acted as a guardian for the orphans, the lunatics, and even the minors. So if there is any case that concerns people like the orphans who don't have mental conditions, and also who seem to be possessed but are living in that society, and the minors who have not attained the required age where they can go to court and defend themselves for them on their own, then the Faqih were there to fight for the rights of these people and ensure that justice is served. So the Faqih administered Pious Foundation, imposed punishment on those who violated the law, and also appointed judicial deputies in the provincial, in the provinces. We are looking at the Qadi, who is the member of the Faqih class. Now, as a class, that is people who are learned, their work was this, and the Qadi, as a member of the Faqih class, his work was to ensure that there was imposed the punishment on those who violated the law, and also he appointed deputies in the provinces. That is another feature. Let us now look at the next slide, where we're looking at another feature, that is a Bureau of Taxes. Continued to Hello, sorry for that, Misha. Can we continue? I believe we can continue now. There was some problem. Now we are continuing looking at the features of the Abbasid administration, and we are looking at the Bureau of Taxes continue to operate during the Abbasids. The sources of the state revenue were zakat, jizya, haraj, and tithes levied on goods owned by the Muslims, and also those goods imported from the Muslim state. The tax system became more equitable under the Abbasids. I already mentioned earlier that during the reign of the Abbasids, there was remarkable improvement, and we see that there is the issue of equitability or equity during this reign. Since the Muslims and Arabs and the non-Arab Muslims paid the same taxes, the revenue was used for the payment of troops, maintenance of mosques, roads, bridges, and for the general welfare of the community. Now, let me come here. Revenue, taxes. I say that during the reign of the Umayyads, the non-Arabs Muslims were overtaxed, and they were the people who were propagators or supporters of the Abbasid dynasty. And we see that during the Abbasid dynasty now, what happens? There is the same tax. That is, the Muslim Arabs and the non-Arab Muslims pay the same taxes. So there is no issue of overtaxing, and there is no complaints from the group of the non-Arab Muslims. So things are running smoothly. There is so much wealth. When we were looking at the reign of Al-Rashid, we saw that there were so many wealth and prosperity, and this revenue, which is collected, was used for payment of the troops. Remember, there were different holy wars, different battles which were happening. So the revenue was used to pay troops, maintenance of mosques. Remember, mosques are very important to the Muslims. So if there is any repairs, it was used for that. And also constructions of roads, bridges, and for the general welfare of the community. When we are looking at the general welfare of the community, we are looking at the hospitals, we are looking at the different homes for the old, for the orphans. There is dispensaries and schools. So we see that during the Abbasid reign, there is clear use of the revenue, and also there is equitability because the Arabs and the non-Arab Muslims are paying the same taxes. So there is nothing like one group being overtaxed for the sake of the other. Another feature during the Abbasid reign was that during this time, the Arab hegemony was broken. The Arab hegemony was broken. Polygamy, issues with concubines and slavery, slave trades, and the avenues of fusion of the Arabian blood with that of the subject people was broken. As a result, Arabian social organization broke down. You can remember during the Umayyad dynasty, we say that they were promoting, or they were favoring the Arab Muslims. But the Abbasids come in during that reign of the Abbasid. We see that the hegemony that or the support for the Arabs is broken, and that meant that the issue dealing with concubines, slave trade, polygamy, avenues of fusion of Arabian blood, and also let me stress on the able to collect tax, to give out tax. Remember, they were overtaxed during that time, and they were not able to pay. Now they were taken to be slaves. So there was the issue of slavery, and this did not go on well with the non-Arab Muslim, the Qajaratis. And we see that the Abbasids come in during the Abbasid dynasty. During the Abbasid time, we see that this thing, the Arabian social organization, is broken down. So there is nothing like favoring the Arabs and saying that the non people. Among the Abbasid Caliph, for example, only 3 sons of free mothers, vis-a-vis the Abu al-Abbas, al-Mahdi, and al-Amin. These were the Abbasid Caliphs who were sons of these free mothers. They were the caliphs during the time of the Abbasid dynasty, and we looked at some of them. There is Al-Amin, Al-Mahdi, Abu al-Abbas. Al-Mansur's mother was a Berber slave, while that of Al-Mu'amun was a Persian slave. You can clearly see that during the Abbasid Caliphate, caliphs were chosen not based on whether they were Arabs, no, because you see one of them, his mother was a Berber slave, and another one was, the mother was Persian slave. And we see that during the reign, especially the reign of Mamun, there is so much prosperity. So we cannot say that the children of the slaves cannot do anything. So the Abbasids were, during the Abbasid time, everyone was put in one basket, and there was nothing like this comes from this side, or that caliph will come from this side. Umayyad era, the is continued. Oh, sorry for that. I made a mistake and muted myself, but now I have unmuted myself. You can now continue. There's someone who has raised his hand. That is, his admission number is seen here. Can you kindly unmute your microphone and give your concern before we continue? Muted. Unmute. I have muted myself. I was giving an opportunity for one student here who raised his hand or her hand. I was trying. We can continue with the class. Something happened. This technology thing, I don't know what happened. We can just continue now. Like during the Umayyad era, the Mis continued to enjoy religious toleration. They preserved their own languages and religion. So they had some important financial, clerical, and professional positions in spite of some discriminative legislation which were enacted against them. So, for example, Harun al-Rashid in 807 decreed that all churches in the borderlands should be demolished. That is according to the racial features during the administration under the Abbasids. It is observed that the Abbasid state was a Muslim state rather than an Arab state, compared to the Umayyad state, which was Arabic state in nature, where we see that the Arabs and the non-Arabs were treated differently. But during the Abbasid state, we see that Arab state where all Muslims enjoyed equal privileges. That is the Arab Muslims and the non-Arab Muslims. The Arab economy also was broken. You've seen that when we are comparing with the Umayyad, we say that during the Umayyad reign, the Arabs were favored compared to the non-Arabic Muslims, but during the reign of the Abbasids, it was broken. Most significant, the Abbasid administration was a departure from the Umayyad. is in regard to the Mawalis, and they enjoyed a better status. That is a summary when we look at what we've already covered when we are looking at the features of the Abbasid state. The next one is the Abbasid state had a religious character compared to the Umayyad, who were concerned with the race, but the Abbasid state had a religious character. On the other hand, the Abbasid administration remained largely similar to that of the Umayyads. When we were looking at the first feature, we said that the provinces remained the same, so that is a similarity. While the Umayyad acted as the Arab chiefs, their Abbasid counterparts acted as kings. That is another comparison, and established courts in the pattern of the Persian emperors. That is the Abbasid state. That is the Abbasid counterparts. Hence, the Persian influence in the Abbasid administration was evident in such offices as those of the wazir. Remember, when we were looking at the Umayyads, we say that some of the Persian people were regarded to be slaves. But when the Abbasid administration comes in, we see that every person is treated equally. And we say that the Abbasid dynasty was a victory to the Persian group. Because during the Umayyad reign, we say that the Umayyads only acted favoring the Arabs. But when the Abbasids comes in, we see equality, equitable resources distribution, we see equity, and also we see that some of the caliphs during the Abbasid administration came from the families of the slaves, where we see that Al-Mamun's mother was a Persian slave, and also Al-Bashir's mother was a slave. We see that there is cooperation, and there is nothing like favoritism in the side of the Abbasid administration. We see that even some of the people who came from the Persian side had a privilege to become wazirs, to become the wazir of the vizier when we were looking at some of the various caliphs. Having looked at the administration of the Abbasids, and we've clearly tried to compare and contrast it, now can we move on and look at the major achievements under the Abbasids? We looked at the achievements during the Umayyads. Now we can say that we can continue with the achievements under the Abbasids. Having looked at the administration under the Abbasids, we can now move on and say that the Abbasid dynasty lasted over half a millennia, from 750 to 1258. That is a very long time, and it is the longest lived dynasties of the Islamic history, where I see that the Abbasid dynasty lasted longer than the other dynasties. And even when we're looking at the four first caliphs, it is one of the longest one. For a dynasty that ruled for so many years, there must have been some important contributions that could be attributed to that. And when we were looking at its administration and also some of the caliphs, we saw that there was some sign of prosperity, there was some sign of generosity, equitable distribution of resources. There is same taxes being paid, so there is nothing like favoritism or exploiting one side in favor of the other. So we are going to identify and assess the achievements of the Abbasid dynasty moving forward. And I believe that if you have any question or any concern, feel free to comment here in the public chat. Now, there are several main achievements of the Abbasid dynasty. And we look at them one by one. One of it is that development of Islamic law. Sorry for that. One of the achievements during the Abbasid dynasty is that there is the development of the Islamic law. When we're looking at the Caliph al-Rashid, we saw that he constructed the court and plastered it with the gold. So it shows that the caliphs were very keen on ensuring that the Islamic law or issues that concerns the Islamic law, that is Sharia, are propagated or supported. Now, the Abbasids gave a lot of support to the development of the Sharia that became more significant, that had significant contribution to Islam. The work of the early law schools that began during the late Umayyad period flourished under the reign of the Caliph. During the Abbasid Caliph. The first 2 centuries of the Abbasid rule, that is 750 to 950, witnessed establishment of various schools of law in the major centers of the empire. So in these centers, Islamic law had been federalized and institutionalized. Matters that were propagated during the early reign of, or the late period of the Umayyad, we see them being supported even in the reign of the Abbasid rule, where we see establishment of various schools of law. And in this way, this helped in ensuring that the Islamic law as a whole is developed according to how the various caliphs of the Muslim fraternity had wanted it to be. The second one is the development of Islamic culture and civilization. That is another achievement during the Abbasid period. The Abbasids were committed patrons of culture and arts. And when we are looking at the Persians, we say that some of the cultures and arts of the Persian group were propagated into the Muslims' life. So they developed law, religious disciplines such as Quran interpretation, tradition, criticism, history, and biography. The process of Arabicization that started during the late Umayyad period was completed by the end of the 9th century, that is during the reign of the Abbasid period. Arabic language also was replaced by Syriac, Coptic, Aramaic, and the Greek. During the reign of the Umayyad, we say that they were stressing on Arabicization. There's the issue of Arabic language. The Arab Muslims were treated well compared to the non-Arab Muslims. But during the reign of the Abbasid, we see that the Arabic language was replaced by Syriac, Coptic, Aramaic, and the Greek languages. So Arabic became the language of the communication in the intellectual debates, government, and literature. But it was not the only language to be spoken. promos given to the Greek, Aramaic, Syriac, and Coptic languages that were there. Another achievement during the Abbasid reign is the intellectual awakening. Well, when we are looking at some of the caliphs, there is this caliph which propagated issues that concerns with scholarship on arts, issues that concerns with law and sciences. So it shows that there was the intellectual awakening. The Abbasid Caliphate witnessed the most tremendous intellectual awakening in the history of Islam. This is recorded. And this awakening was brought about by the foreign influences, especially from those of Greeks, India, Persian, and the Syria. We've looked at the Arabic language being replaced by Syriac. There is the Persian language, and there is the Greek. These people are very strong support, and they were propagated in this state, that is the Abbasid state. When we're looking at the Abbasid administration, we say that it promoted equality, and we see that the participation of these states helped in influencing intellectual awakening. Consequently, translation bureaus were established. Manuscripts were obtained from the farthest corners of the empire and translated from their original languages such as Greek, Syriac, Latin, Sanskrit, and the Persian into Arabic. So there is acknowledgement of other intellectual content from these states, unlike in the era of the Umayyad reign, where we saw that only Arabs were favored compared to these other people. So that contributed to intellectual awakening because translation from other sources, or which came from India, Greece, Syria, contributed in the intellectual awakening or even scholarship as a whole. Another achievement is development of culture and culture centers. The cultural and intellectual domination of Islam during the Abbasid reign prompted the Arab historians to refer to this period as the golden age of Islamic civilization. This is a very important statement that you are asked to discuss the period as the golden age of Islamic civilization. Here you are looking at various prosperities that we have already looked at, that being the longest serving caliphate, it had so much achievements, and which you as a student of ARE 215, I believe you can give them so far, because as we have been looking at its administration, there are some of them there, and also as we look at the achievements, I believe you can defend yourself very well. The main urban cultural centers of this civilization included the Cordova in Spain, the Baghdad, Cairo, Nishapur, and Palermo. So these centers eclipsed Christian Europe that was still mired in the Dark Ages. So Hellenism was one of the most important foreign influences in Muslim life, where we see that cultures, and also civilization aspects which came from the Greek part helped so much in development of culture and civilization as a whole. When we are looking at Hellenization, we are just trying looking at the some of the aspects, cultures and civilization that came from the Greek part of that were propagated or put in the Muslim life.
Wow.
So the peak of this influence came during the reign of Al-Mamun, under whom the Mutazilite doctrine flourished. He delighted in intellectual debates and made pronouncements in favor of the doctrine of the createdness of the Quran. So there is this Caliph Al-Mamun was very fond of different debates. And in 827, Al-Mamun imposed an inquisition, Mina, in which all judges, government officials, and teachers were supposed to subscribe to the doctrine of the createdness of the Quran. So this inquisition was maintained, and during the reign of Caliph Al-Mu'tasim and Al-Wathiq, but was abolished by Caliph Al-Mutawakkil in 842, when the Quran was finally to be uncreated. So he went against the issues that were propagated by Al-Mamun, who was supporting createdness of the Quran. But the Caliph comes in 842 and says that Quran is uncreated. Another achievement is development of House of Wisdom, which is Bat al-Hikmah. In 830, Caliph Al-Mamun established the House of Wisdom. So in Baghdad, Al-Mamun is a very fundamental Caliph. This was a combination of a library, that is the House of Wisdom was a combination of a library, academy, and a translation bureau that proved to be very important. Education was a very important educational institution since the foundation of Alexandria Museum in the first half of the 3rd century. So Al-Mamun is another caliph who we've seen that he was very keen in ensuring that intellectual knowledge, sponsorship, scholarship, and issues that deal with translation. Remember that we are looking at other languages like Syriac, there is the Coptic language, there is the Greek language. So there is so much translation so that it can facilitate the development of intellectual, and also when we are looking at issues pertaining to culture and civilization, this translation would ensure that some of the aspects of these languages would be incorporated in the Muslims' life, just as we looked earlier. So in summary, we've looked at some of the achievements during the Abbasid dynasty, and I believe that you've really captured them well. One of them is the development of Islamic Sharia, where we were looking at the issue of the Sharia law, also issues that concerns with the court, and even appointment of deputies in provinces, and the Qadi, who is the head of this, the Sharia law. Also, we've looked at the issues that concerns with the ministries, that is the Wazir. There is the development of Islamic culture and civilization, where we've seen that there is the infusion of culture and civilization of other languages like the Greek, the Syriac, the Coptic, which were propagated and also put together in the life of the Muslims. So these ensure development of Islamic culture and civilization. And also when we are looking at this Caliph Mamun, I think it's Al-Mamun, who is a supporter of translations, who built, let me go back and see, is Al-Mamun, good. Is Al-Mamun who even built a translation bureau so that we can have a glimpse of other languages, other cultures from the Greek, the Syria, India, among other groups that were propagated and even supported during the reign of the Abbasid Dynasty. Another achievement is the intellectual awakening, where we see that there were caliphs who were supporting different departments like arts, sciences, and also philosophical departments, where they were very good at supporting and even building libraries, even putting aside some funds so that they can give scholarship to some of the people who were in the class of the faqih, that is the learned people in Islamic law. Development of culture and culture centers is another achievement, and we've looked at it clearly, and you can be able to discuss it given in an exam. Establishment of the House of Wisdom, which was built by Al-Mamun, a very profound caliph during the reign of the Abbasid. And also we've seen that he also built a library there and also built a translation bureau so that they can have a glimpse of what other languages were talking about in terms of intellectual content. So due to this achievement, historians consider this Abbasid dynasty as the golden age in the annals of the Arabs and the Islam. So I believe if given a chance, you should be able to explain the Abbasid dynasty as the golden age in the Islamic history. I think we'll be looking at that question referring to the achievements and the features which were very profound in nature. So the golden age of Islam should be attributed to the Abbasid period. This is a question that you're supposed to answer, that you should explain or discuss it as the golden age. And how did the Abbasid Caliphs help to nurture the great Muslim civilization? I believe you can do that, referring to different caliphs as you've already seen. Different caliphs. We looked at its achievement, and we finished by looking at the decline and the fall of the Umayyad dynasty, which I believe we can discuss it, looking at the issue of inequality, the issue of Arab, non-Arab, and the issue of treating others differently. Having said that, now let us look at the decline and the fall of the Abbasids. Like any reign, there is always a time where you can flourish and also a time where you can calm down. Given some of the conditions, there was a time where the Abbasid, which is referred as the Golden Age, had to bow down and decline totally. So, as mentioned in the previous lecture, the Abbasid period was the longest-lived dynasty of Islamic history, and it is also called the Golden Age of the Islamic history. The Abbasid period in the history of Islam was divided into two. That is the early period of 750 to 945, and then the other one, which came later, from 945 to 1258. Where the second period was a total of 313 years. Now, the year 1945 is a very important year. It is a turning point because this is the year that the Shia Buyahids captured power and left the Abbasid as mere nominal rulers. So in the second reign, that is from 1945 to 1258, we can say that the Abbasid period, the Abbasid dynasty just ruled as mere nominal rulers. But in the first 195 years, here, that is from 750 to 945, here we see that there was a clear guidance from the Abbasid rulers. There was clear way on which they were supposed to rule. But here we see a confusion because we are told that the Buyahids, the Shia Buyahids captured power and left the Abbasids as mere rulers. They're just there for the sake of name, but they cannot give orders pertaining to some of the issues that were very critical. The entire Abbasid period produced 37 caliphs, out of which only 4 were very capable and great, and among them is the Al-Mansur, Al-Mahid, Harun, Al-Rashid, and Mamun. These were the 4 caliphs who were very important. I mean, during their reign, there was profound improvement and they had a say on what is going on. But the 33 of them, I think they fell in the second reign. That is where they were only there for the sake of the name, but they were inept and political mediocres. That is what they are called, inept and political mediocre. So we will look at the decline of the Abbasid that started from the later Abbasid period, which I've already mentioned, that is composing the 313 years. So you should be able to trace the events that led to the fall of Abbasid dynasty. Just like we were looking at the Umayyad dynasty, we saw what culminated to their fall and discuss the factors that contributed to the fall of the Abbasid dynasty. Feel free to state anything. If you have any question, please state there at the public chat. I'll just see it as we move forward. The Abbasid political unity began to deteriorate drastically after the 950, after the year 950. So from 861 to 945, there was religious and regional differences among the Shiites and the Karajitis. And competition for the political ascendancy that ultimately led to the series of revolts and movements, sensationist movements, were seen during this time, where the Shiites and the Khajitis were fighting for the issues that concern to political ascendancy. However, this integration started as early as 800, that despite the fact that the Shiites and the Khajitis tried to fight for the political ascendancy, the issue had already started in 800 when the Tunisia and the Morocco became self-autonomous and established their own dynasties. So they only gave nominal allegiance to the government of Baghdad through the payment of the tribute. But they were not supporting the government fully. They were just there to give the revenue payment, but they were not supporting it fully because they became self-autonomous and they established their own dynasties. So before that, the Alids who felt cheated by the Abbasids expressed their annoyance. Now there is this group they felt that they were cheated by the Abbasids. So they experienced the annoyance through unsuccessful uprisings. For example, there was a revolt in Medina in 762, where we see Muhammad ibn Abdullah, a great grandson of Hassan, Ali's elder son, headed the revolt. The Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur killed him, and his brother Idris fled to North Africa, where he later founded an independent Ali principality in Morocco. That is one of the revolt. And there was another one in Mecca in 786, where in 791, descendants of Hassan's son Zaid founded the Zayidite dynasty. In 864, Harun al-Rashid suppressed another revolt by the Alids. So we see that even during the reign of a very successful person like Caliph, that is al-Mansur and al-Rashid, who are seen to be very important in the reign of the Abbasids, there were revolts and they were able to deal with them, although we see that they also killed people during those times. So the revolts were going on and on. They were on and off, and as the caliphs were ruling, they were able to deal with them as the years goes by. Al-Mamun is another caliph. His son had to quell two revolts, one in Iraq and the other one in Mecca. In 851, Caliph al-Mutawakkil destroyed the shrine of Saint at Kabbalah and prohibited pilgrimages to the shrine. So at the end of the 9th century, the Alid Absaj came in form of Ismailism, uprising, but they failed to dethrone the Abbasids. However, they kept the empire in a state of disturbances until its final disintegration. So they just tried to disturb the dynasty throughout the different caliphs who came to power. And we see that the Alid changed their color, or they camouflaged into Ismailism, where they had another uprising, but I think they were able to, the Caliph was able to contain them. But we see that the Abbasid dynasty had so much challenges. Caliph al-Mamun was a politically inept caliph who lost the grip of Khorasan, the eastern province. So during his reign, he was able to lose one province here. Ultimately, a Persian principality was established there in 820. So we see here that even though the Persians, the Abbasids were very accommodative, unlike the Umayyads, these people who were accommodated took advantage of the situation, and we see that Al-Mamun was able to lose one of his promises to the Persians, the people who were propagated or even constituted in the state of the Abbasid. The Mutasim, that is from 813 to 842, surrounded himself with the Turkish bodyguards, whose luxuries provoked discontent at the Baghdad. So a mutiny during the reign of al-Mutawakkil by his Turkish bodyguards led to his death. You see another incident where a person who was not treated well during the Umayyads is treated well during the Abbasid, and later we see them taking advantage also. They take advantage, and we see them killing the Caliph. These were some of the challenges, I think, during the Abbasid dynasty. And just like any reign, there are people who are also against the reign. This episode was followed by 10 years of political anarchy in which one caliph after the other who ascended the throne was killed. So there was a tendency for the 10 years where we see a caliph coming into a seat, but is killed starting with Al-Mutawakil, who is the son to Al-Mamun. So during this turmoil, a Persian part of the caliphate seceded. A Turkish mercenary, Hamad bin Tulu declared himself master of Egypt and Syria, while a slave revolt broke out in Basra and spread to lower Iraq. These are people who were accommodated during the Abbasid reign. Remember, the Arabic language being replaced by Syriac language. So you see here that a person who was welcomed and accommodated very well is paying back with evil in terms of trying to disintegrate the whole state. So in this lesson, we have attempted to, we have attempted to highlight the events and factors that led to the decline of eventful fall of the Abbasid. And it's shown that the political disintegration that was witnessed during this time proceeded apace and was aided by the caliph's inability to pacify the various enchanted groups like the Kajitis, the Turks, and the Shiites. It is these groups that kept the empire on its source as they established quasi states. Sorry for that. I was trying to connect the laptop. Now we've looked at the challenges that were experienced during the Abbasid reign, and we say that those challenges culminate to its disintegration, and it is these groups that kept the empire on its source, although we've seen that in some time they weakened the foundation of the Abbasid power, where I've seen that in the there was a 10 years a period where a caliph was killed whenever he would ascend to the throne. So these issues weakened the Abbasid reign, and there's further reading here. There are books that are already mentioned. Hitti wrote History of the Arabs, which is very, very important in researching on the different aspects of the history of Islamic civilization and culture. There's the history of Islamic societies, which is written by Lapidus, which was written by Lapidus. It's very important to do further or so we've completed the issue, we've looked at the issue of caliphate, and I think with the Abbasid Caliphate, we are able to say that we've exhausted the issues that deal with the caliphate, where we've seen how these three periods, that is the first period of the first four Orthodox caliphs, there's the Umayyad period, and also the Abbasid dynasty, where we've looked at various features of these administrations and the achievements that were gained during the reigns of these different caliphs when we are looking at the issue of the caliphate. Remember, the issue of the caliphate came after the death of Prophet Muhammad, where he died before designating who will take over from him. So there was the contentious issue where different groups were saying that it is us, it is us. And we saw how the Muslims solved this issue, where we are looking at the Mihajiruni, the legitimists, the Umayyads, and also the immigrants who had a say on who will take over. And we went straight for Abu and we went straight up to where we've reached here, the Abbasid dynasty. Now, the topic, that is the religio-political divisions and the development of sectarianism in Islam. And let me state that when we look at this topic, we will be looking at different aspects that we've already looked from the content which you've already learned. That is, we are looking at the divisions and how these people were arguing based on various issues, and the geopolitical issues starts from the issue of the caliphate. Remember, when Abu Bakr took over, it was wow, okay. Sorry for that. I don't know what happened. Let's move on. Now, I have said that the religio-political division started all way back after the death of the Prophet because of different key issues. So we will look at the religio-political divisions in Islam that split the community into the Sunni and the Shia. And many of the issues examined in the lessons and other lessons that follow in this lecture are already mentioned in the previous works, as already mentioned by your lecturer. We should bear in mind that from the beginning, that the divisions that came up pitting the Shia against the Sunni were based on the issue of the caliphate. That was essentially a political death of the Prophet. So when we're looking at the political division, we will trace the origin of the division between the Sunni and the Shia and account for the development of sectarianism in Islam. Also, we will be able to compare the Sunni concept of leadership with that of the Shia. So we are looking at the division basing on the Sunni and people. What was their action? The succession of Ali to the Caliphate. 52. Now, the succession of Ali to the Caliphate in 656 was contested by a number of companions of the Prophet, including Zubair, Ayesha, and Talha. This eventually led to the Battle of the Camel that marked the first fitna, that is the civil war in Islam. Remember, Ali came after Uthman. Uthman, who was the caliph before Umar who came after Abu Bakr. The Battle of the Camel brought a serious rift in the Muslim community. After this battle, the term Shiite Ali came to include all those who had supported Ali against Ayesha, Zubair, and Talha. Now, the Battle of the Camel was very, very crucial during the reign of Ali. During his time, that is Ali, Shiism did not display any open hostility or opposition to the rest of the Muslim society. The Shiites even fought alongside majority in holy wars and participated in pub. They were living like brother and sister. Interest whenever, according to the Shia, they say that Ali is their first Imam. So they recognize Ali to be their first Imam, and there is no one before him. It is the Prophet and him. Ali was assassinated in 661, and Hassan, his son, became the second Imam of the Shia. But Muawiyah, who had waged war against Ali, continued to wage war. So he continued to challenge the son of Ali. Through intrigues and payment of great sums of money, he corrupted the aides and generals of Hassan, who was forced to abdicate in favor of Muawiyah to avoid further bloodshed and to make peace. So he used money to blackmail Hassan, that is Ali's son. He handed the caliphate to Muawiyah on condition that the caliphate would be returned to him after the death of Muawiyah. So we see that Muawiyah went further, even despite the fact that he was blackmailing him. He went further and took the caliphate, and they made a pact that after his death, Hassan, that is Ali's son, would become the next caliph. And no harm would be done to his follower, that is the followers of Hassan. But Muawiyah never honored this promise. He went ahead and nominated his son Yazid as the heir apparent. Hassan later died of food poisoning, you see Hassan dying of food poisoning in 669. Muawiyah also ordered the casting of Ali from the pulpit of mosques throughout the empire. Remember, Ali was very important to Muslims, and also he was also called the first Imam of them, of the Shia. But we see Muawiyah comes in and also orders that everything that concerns him should be removed from the mosques throughout the empire, a practice that continued under the Umayyad Caliph under the reign of Umar II when it was discontinued. So you see that this practice went further in the Umayyad Caliphate, but it was discontinued during the reign of Umar II, who was the Caliph during the reign of the Umayyad Caliph. Now, with the abdication of Hassan, he prevented a bloody conflict with Muawiyah, but this abdication did not heal the split in the community. That is the split that existed in this community. Indeed, Hassan's abdication had far-reaching consequences for the later development of Shiism, that is a group in Islam. The followers of Muawiyah became the central body, while the Shiite Ali was reduced to the role of a small opposition that was thrust into sectarian position. The Shiite Ali was a term which was referring to the people who came from the family of the Prophet, that is the followers of Ali. And we see that these people were given very small roles, and also it was like they were not recognized at all. So the period after Hussein's death marked the first conflict over the leadership of the followers of Ali. This resulted in the division of the Shia into various sects. Now we see Shia, which was a sect, now having various sects under it. So it means that there are issues which were raised here and it did not go well with other people in that sect. After the death of Hussein, majority of the Shia followed his son Zaina al-Abidin as the fourth Imam. A minority followed Muhammad ibn Hanafiya as the fourth Imam, as well as the promised Mahdi. Now, after the death of Abidin, Muhammad al-Bakir, while minority followed Zayd al Zain al-Abidin. See how then is going on, where we see that from every split there is also another split, and there is no clear guidance on various issues, and people are dissatisfied based on who is on the caliph, who is the caliph, or who is guiding them as at that time. The followers of al-Bakir accepted his son Jafar as Sadiq as the sixth Imam after the death of Jafar. The majority followed his son Musa al-Kazim as the seventh Imam, while another group is there which followed the elder son of Jafar. Now, the sons of Jafar had the minority followers and also the majority followers. So from a family here, where there is a father, we see a son having another split, and also the minority group having another, with the son of Jafar, that is Ismail, who had preceded his predeceased his father. It is also argued that Jafar disinherited his son because of his elder son because of the latter's love for drink. That is, he loved drinking, so his father was displeased with that act, and therefore disinherited him. So some denied the right to Jafar to alter the succession, and declared Ismail not to be dead but hidden, and recognized him as the seventh Imam. There's a group which support Jafar's son, Musa al-Kazim, as the seventh Imam, and also another one which is here supporting Ismail, whose father was discontented with because of his drinking problem, and also they now support him as the seventh Imam. So we see in a family we have a split based on religion, and this further culminates to other divisions. Another group stopped with the sixth Imam and considered him the last one. Now, there is another group. There is this group of Jafar's sons who are claiming to having seventh Imam, and there is this another group which is supporting or supported the sixth Imam and stopped it at that. So they did not go further with the Jafar's sons. So they just stopped here at sixth Imam. After the death of Imam Musa al-Kazim, majority followed him, his son Al-Rida, Ali al-Rida. This is the seventh Imam who was supported by the majority. that concerns with the Imam. Now, let's move further and look at some of the main Shia texts, Shia sects, Shia groups. So it became obvious that one cannot talk of a homogeneous Shia sect. There is nothing like one Shia sect, because we've seen that whenever a caliph would come in or an imam, then there was the issue of supporting one or not supporting him. So as it were, the Shia is a heterogeneous group with many subsects. It composed of many groups. It cannot be called an homogeneous sect. The various Shia subsects are known and identified by their various names. So we would look at some of the main Shia sects and what were their thoughts or their ideas. So you should be able to examine some of these sects and explain their beliefs and teachings uh, of this of these identified groups or the Shia sects that we are going to look in our next time. That is now. No, there's nothing like next time, it is now. The main Shia sects are divided into some groups, main groups, and one of them is the Twelfers. They are also referred to as the Ithna Asheris or the Imamis. They are so called because they accept the leadership of the 12 Imams. That is why they are called the Twelfers. Note that the Twelfers form the majority of the Shiites from among the Zaydis, the Ismailis, and others who seceded from them. That is why they are called the Twelfers. They were the group who believed that there were 12 Imams, and they believed that the last one, as we already looked, was the last true Imam who was sent by God. Twelfers had their own teachings and their own belief. They held the belief that the imamate descended by express appointment in the following order. So this was their understanding about the issue of the imams. That is called imamate. They say that the first one was Ali, and then the second one was a son, and they went further up to the 12th Imam, that is Al-Askari, Ali Al-Askari, who they believed that was the last Imam and was the last one who was sent by God. So they believe that the imamate descended in that order, and there is nothing like a 13th Imam. Muhammad Ali Mahdi was the last Imam, and who, according to the Shia belief, disappeared in the 5th year of his age. I had I mentioned Ali al-Askari as the 12th one. He was the 11th one, and the second 12th one was the Muhammad al-Mahdi, who was the last Imam and who, according to the Shia belief, disappeared in the 5th year of his age. He is believed to be still alive. He established the purity of the human race. That is according to the Twelfers. They believe that that he would come again, and that he just disappeared, but he will come again. That is understanding. According to the Twelfers, the Islamic Caliphate, of which esoteric guidance and spiritual leadership are inseparable elements, belong to Ali and his descendants. That is according to them. That the Islamic Caliphate, of which there was clear guidance and spiritual leadership, and they were put together. There was nothing like separating them. It was during the reign of Ali. Remember that Ali became a caliph after who? Uthman. So they believe that, the 12 of us believe that during the reign of Ali, that is when we saw that there was clear guidance, esoteric guidance, and spiritual leadership, which were guided at, following, inseparable. They were inseparable elements, and they were used during the reign of Ali. The injunctions and regulations of the Sharia that are enshrined in the Quran must be learned through the guidance of the household of the Prophet. So they believe that whatever content is found in the Quran that are related to the Sharia law, then they should be taught under the guidance of the household of the Prophet. Remember, I mentioned that there was this term Shiat Ali. It means that the people who come from the household of the Prophet. So the believers of the Imam Ali and the 12 fast, they believe that those people who are coming from the household of the Prophet are the one who are supposed to guide people on issues relating to Sharia and the Quran, under the Quran. The 12 fast follow the jurisprudence of the household of the Prophet, and Muhammad is the seal of the Prophet. Muhammad is the seal of the prophets. They hold that they believe that the prophet had 12 successors and that the Quran has an exoteric and esoteric aspect, that the Quran has the exoteric and esoteric aspect. Therefore, they believe that Muhammad, remember the 12th Imam, is the seal of the prophets, and therefore they believe that those people who are coming from the household of the prophet are supposed to guide people on issues relating to Sharia that are enshrined there or that are found in the Quran. There is another set of the sixth, and they believe that the Imam can come from the descendants of the prophet, and that person should be pure, should not have sin, he should be courageous and generous, and also he should be learned in issues that pertain to religious sciences. That is according to the Zaydias. They therefore combine the principle of election with the principle that restricts the imamate to the al-Bayt. They hold that they believe that it is lawful to elect the less eminent, distinguished, while the most eminent is present. Therefore, you should consider that the most distinguishable is the person who should be elected. As a result of this principle, they at the beginning considered the first two caliphs. Remember the two caliphs, Abu Bakr and Umar, as their imams. As a result of this acceptance, other sheets referred to them as dissenters. Later, the names of the first two caliphs were deleted from the list of imams. According to the Zaide, these people who believe in the five imams, they were believing in these two people, but the Shiites called them dissenters. That is why they removed the 2 people from the list, and that is why they remained only with the 5, starting from the Imam Ali. They do not limit the number of the Imams to 12. They hold the belief that in addition to piety for the office of the Imam, an Imam should possess bravery, that is according to them, and the capacity to assert by force of arms his right to the imamate, that is the Imam, issues that dealing with the Imam. They do not use the jurisprudence of the house of the Prophet. These people, that is the Zaydiyas, they do not stress on the issue of the house of the Prophet compared to the 12 fasts. The class prefect is very, very positive there, thanking everyone for showing up for this group. And also, I'm very happy. And he says that you deserve this. Okay, let's see. Let's continue. You will show that during the exam, and then I'll see, or you'll see by the way you have scored, if you'll get A's. That the ideas are divided into various subsets or subsection, differing from each other about the devotion of the imamate from the grandson of Zaid. The Zaidias are divided into various subsets, differing from each other about the devolution of the imamate from the grandson of Zaid. This is just a note that you should not, as you look at this group. Zaid was succeeded by Yahya ibn Zaid, who in turn was succeeded by Muhammad ibn Abdallah, who in turn was succeeded by Ibrahim ibn Abdallah. The 3 were the chosen imams before they were killed in a revolt during the Abbasid period. That is according to the Zaydis. They believe that those imams who came after Zaid and who were killed during the should be considered as imams, and they are recognized among the Zaydis as a subsect of the Shia group. The Ismailis are another group among the Shia. They are also referred to as Seveners, a name they derived from Ismail, a son of Jafar as Sadiq, who they recognize as the 7th. So the Ismailis are also called the Seveners. So they believe in the seven imams instead of Musa al-Kazim. Ishmael died before his father. At his deathbed, his father Jafar summoned witnesses, including the governor of Medina. That is according to the Ismailis. The followers believe that Ismaili did not die but went into occultation. That is according to them. They also believe that the summoning of the witnesses by Jafar was meant to hide the truth in fear of Al-Mansur, the Abbasid Caliph. Do you remember him? Yes. There is this Al-Mansur, who was the Abbasid Caliph. So they believe that the people tried to hide him from this Caliph. That is why they say that the followers believe that he did not die, but he went into occultation. That is according to the Ismailis, who believe that in the 7 imams. Another group believed that the true imam was Ismaili, Ismail, whose father meant that the imamate was transferred to his son Muhammad. Now there is this father who is called Jafar. There is Jafar, who has his sons. Now they believe that he had transferred his imamate to his son Muhammad, while there is another group which believe that although Ismaili died, so they recognize that Ismaili died during the lifetime of his father. He was the imam, and therefore the imamate posed to his son Muhammad ibn Ismail and his descendants. The first two groups became extinct, while the belief of the third one held sway. So this is the group that continued to exist, though it underwent various sectarianism in the development of Ismailism. Third group, which believed that although Ismaili died, he was the imam, and therefore the imamate passed to his son Muhammad ibn Ismail. That is according to the Seveners, who were also called the Ismailis. According to them, the cannot exist, called the judge of God, therefore exists without proof. The proof is in the form of a speaker and a silent one. The speaker is a prophet, and the silent one is a man who is also a guardian, who is head or executor of the prophet. Now, the principle of the proof of Dante around the number 7. The last and the imam that they live in the number. A prophet is a manifestation to bring a divine message or sevenness. And Kimeu, you can clearly see here the principle of the proof of God revolves constantly around the number 7. A prophet is a message, a divine message of Sharia to the people through prophecy. Therefore, among the Batinis, rejection of duty following the Sharia. That is according to the Seveners, the Ismailis. That is a sect under Shia sect in Islam. So in summary, we've looked at some of the subsects, which are mainly 3, and examined some of their beliefs and teachings, and these groups are the 12 first, the Zaydiyas who believe in 5 imams, and the Ismailis who believe in the 7 imams. The 12 first believe in the 12 imams. Evidently, schism within Shiism, that is Shia sect, emerged due to question of leadership. In the course of their evolution, many of the Shia subsects, save the 12s, split further into other subsects. So it is only the 12 subsect under Shia which did not have any further subsects, but others, they divided further and further. So ideally, although the term Shia refers to a conglomeration of subsects, it has become synonymous with the 12 first. It has become synonymous to the scroll first, because I believe they did not have any further subsets. This is an activity which I believe you'll do it in your time, that you should be able to identify various share subsets and examine their teachings, just as we've already looked at it in our last 20 minutes or so. I think I've clearly looked at some of the reasons why they were Sikhism or split in Islam, and also we've looked at the Shia as a subsect from Islam, and we've even gone further to look at some of the subsets in it and some of the teachings. So in conclusion, I can say that today we've covered so much, and I believe that in your own time you'll be able to summarize them and also have a clear indication through the various researches that you have, using the further reading materials that I've already provided. And there is this ARE 35-344 2019. He's smiling there. Thank you so much for your cooperation. And I believe that we'll have another session where we will look at various topics that we have them according to our course outlines. And I believe that throughout this interaction, we can clearly say that I have students who can clearly defend themselves looking or basing on the history of Islamic civilization and culture, and seeing how this course is important in the endeavor when we are looking at the whole program or syllabus of what we are covering. I think we've come to the end of this session, and there is a smile there. It means that everything is good. And throughout I can look at the public chat. There is positive feedback. Thank you so much. And I hope that you'll do your best in revising and also researching, because I'm now setting the end of term exam. And I have some questions because we've covered so much. I believe you have your cards. I've already communicated on the same. Your card 2 will be, I'll be giving you in the course of the week. Thank you so much for your time. Have a nice time and all the best in your work. God bless you.